Have you ever wondered why you keep falling for the wrong people? Why you're drawn to the same toxic patterns even when you know they'll hurt you? It's not just bad luck. There's something deeper at play. Freud believed that our attractions are not conscious choices, but the result of hidden forces buried in the unconscious mind. You think you're choosing someone based on chemistry, shared interests, or even logic. But in reality, your unconscious is pulling the strings, leading you toward people who fit a pattern you don't even realize exists. This pattern isn't random. It's shaped by something powerful, your earliest experiences with love, attachment, and even pain. Freud argued that the people we are drawn to often mirror deep-seated emotional imprints from childhood, shaping not just who we love, but why we love them, even when it's destructive. So, why does this happen? And more importantly, can we break free from it? To understand, we have to go deep into Freud's theory of the unconscious, where our hidden desires, fears, and past traumas dictate the love stories we unconsciously repeat. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, proposed that much of human behavior is driven by unconscious desires. We like to think we're in control, that we choose our partners based on rational decisions, shared values, or mutual attraction. But Freud argued that the real forces guiding us are hidden beneath the surface. Imagine the mind as an iceberg. The conscious part, the part we're aware of, is just the tip floating above the water. But below lies a massive unseen structure, the unconscious. This is where repressed emotions, forgotten memories, and unresolved childhood experiences live. And whether we realize it or not, these hidden forces shape our desires, fears, and relationship patterns. Freud believed that every experience from early childhood leaves a mark on the unconscious. The way we received love or didn't, the way our caregivers treated us, the way we learned to cope with pain, rejection, or neglect. Over time, these experiences form an internal blueprint for what love feels like, even if that version of love is flawed or harmful. So when we meet someone who fits this blueprint, who unconsciously reminds us of those early emotional imprints, something clicks. We mistake it for chemistry, fate, or intense attraction. But in reality, it's our unconscious mind recognizing a familiar pattern, replaying an old story we may not even remember writing. And this is where things get dangerous. Because what feels familiar isn't always healthy. The unconscious doesn't distinguish between what is good for us and what is harmful. It only seeks what it knows. So if our early experiences of love were painful, inconsistent, or full of conflict, we may find ourselves unconsciously drawn to partners who recreate those same emotions. Not because we enjoy suffering, but because the unconscious craves familiarity over happiness. This is how hidden forces within the mind shape our love lives, pushing us towards certain people without us ever realizing why. Freud called this phenomenon the repetition compulsion. It's one of the strangest and most self-destructive tendencies of the human mind. The unconscious drive to repeat painful experiences from the past. We assume we're seeking love, happiness, or security in relationships. But Freud argued that, deep down, we are often seeking something else, resolution. If we experienced emotional neglect, abandonment, or rejection as children, those wounds don't just disappear. Instead, the unconscious mind compels us to relive them over and over in the hope of changing the outcome. Think of it like an unfinished story. The mind is desperate for closure, so it recreates the same painful dynamics, as if this time things might finally go differently. This is why people with emotionally unavailable parents often find themselves drawn to distant or avoidant partners. It's not a coincidence. It's the unconscious recognizing a familiar emotional landscape. The child who once craved warmth from a cold parent becomes the adult chasing after partners who don't reciprocate love. And it's not just about neglect. A person raised in an environment of chaos and instability may feel restless in a healthy, stable relationship. Without realizing it, they might gravitate toward partners who bring conflict, drama, or emotional turbulence, because that's what love felt like in their formative years. The unconscious mind doesn't seek happiness. It seeks what it knows, even if that means repeating cycles of pain. But here's the paradox. We're not doing this just to suffer. The unconscious is actually trying to heal. By reliving these early wounds through our romantic relationships, we unconsciously hope for a different outcome, one where this time we're loved the way we weren't before. But reality doesn't work that way. Instead of healing, we get stuck in the same toxic loops, drawn to people who only reinforce the old wounds rather than mend them. This is why attraction can feel so irrational, why we fall for people who are clearly wrong for us, even when we know better. It's not just about bad choices, it's the mind's hidden attempt to rewrite history. And until we become conscious of this pattern, we're doomed to repeat it. Our first experience of love doesn't come from romance, it comes from our parents or caregivers. Before we ever understand attraction, before we ever date or fall in love, we learn what love feels like from the people who raised us. And according to Freud, this early experience forms the blueprint for every relationship that follows. The way our parents treated us, whether with warmth, distance, affection, or criticism, becomes our internal definition of love. Not what we think love is, but what it feels like at the deepest, most unconscious level. And this is where things get complicated. Freud's Oedipus complex suggests that, as children, we form deep, sometimes conflicting attachments to our parental figures. The idea isn't that we literally desire our parents, but that we unconsciously seek partners who reflect aspects of them. This happens because, in the mind, familiarity equals safety. Even if our childhood was dysfunctional, even if love came with conditions or pain, it still feels known, and what's known feels safe. This is why people unknowingly date versions of their parents, both the good and the bad. If you grew up with a loving, supportive caregiver, you might naturally seek out partners who provide the same warmth and security. But if you had a parent who was emotionally distant, critical, or inconsistent, your mind might interpret that as love. You could find yourself drawn to partners who withhold affection, who are hard to please, or who keep you guessing, because that dynamic feels right, even if it's unhealthy. The most dangerous part? This happens without us realizing it. We mistake familiarity for love. If someone treats us the way we were treated in childhood, we feel an instant connection, even if that treatment was painful. We don't consciously say, "This person reminds me of my emotionally unavailable father," or "This relationship feels like my chaotic childhood." Instead, we just feel drawn to them, a magnetic pull, an intense attraction that seems too powerful to ignore. But that pull isn't always love. Sometimes it's just the mind searching for something it already understands. This is why healthy love can feel boring to people who grew up in chaos. Why stability can feel suffocating to those who only knew love as something unpredictable. We don't just fall in love with people, we fall in love with patterns. And until we recognize those patterns, they control us. Trauma doesn't just live in the past, it shapes the present, dictating the people we're drawn to, the relationships we enter, and the pain we unknowingly repeat. Freud believed that unresolved emotional wounds don't simply disappear. They get buried in the unconscious, influencing our choices in ways we don't even realize. And one of the mind's strangest, most tragic tendencies, it tries to fix the past by recreating it. This is why people who experience neglect, abandonment, or emotional pain as children often gravitate toward partners who bring back the same wounds. It's not that they want to suffer, it's that the unconscious believes, if I can just make this person love me, if I can just change this outcome, I will finally heal. Someone who was ignored as a child might be drawn to emotionally unavailable partners, hoping that this time, if they try hard enough, they will be noticed. Someone who had a critical or controlling parent might find themselves in relationships where they're constantly seeking approval, believing that this time they can finally be good enough. And tragically, this often leads them back into the same cycle of rejection, pain, and self-doubt. Because the unconscious mind isn't logical, it's repetitive. It doesn't care if a pattern is healthy. It only cares if it's familiar. This is why breaking free is so difficult. The paradox is that the more we run from our past, the more it controls us. Unresolved trauma demands to be felt, and if we refuse to face it, it will find its way into our lives through the people we choose, the relationships we enter, and the suffering we keep reliving. The only way out is awareness. To recognize that attraction isn't always love, that intensity isn't always chemistry, that sometimes the strongest pull is actually a warning sign. We like to believe we have complete control over who we love, that attraction is a conscious choice, that we fall for someone because of their personality, values, or the way they make us feel. But Freud argued that free will is largely an illusion. Most of our decisions, especially in love, are not truly ours. They are shaped by unconscious forces, hidden wounds, and deeply ingrained patterns formed long before we were aware of them. When you find yourself irresistibly drawn to someone who ends up hurting you, it's easy to blame bad luck or poor judgment. But what if it's neither? What if the attraction itself is not random at all? The unconscious doesn't look for happiness. It looks for familiarity. And because of this, people often mistake comfort for love, even when that comfort is toxic. That's why someone who grew up feeling unworthy of affection might be drawn to a partner who makes them feel the same way. Why someone who was abandoned might chase after someone who keeps pulling away. It's not that we want to suffer. It's that the unconscious is trying to find resolution, to relive the past in hopes of rewriting the ending. But here's the harsh truth. The past cannot be rewritten. No relationship, no person, no amount of effort can undo the wounds of childhood. The only way to break free is through conscious awareness. To step outside the illusion and recognize that not every attraction is love, not every spark is destiny, and not every intense feeling should be trusted. True freedom in love doesn't come from blindly following desire. It comes from understanding where that desire is coming from. The first step in breaking free from these unconscious patterns is recognition. You need to become aware of the cycle you're stuck in, the toxic partners you keep choosing, the emotional wounds you keep reopening. This awareness isn't just the key to healing, it's the key to freedom. Once you recognize the pattern, it's time to disrupt it. Therapy, self-awareness, and inner work are powerful tools in this process. Working with a therapist, for example, can help you untangle the deep-rooted issues that are driving your choices in relationships. It allows you to address past traumas and reframe the unconscious beliefs that control you. But therapy is just one part of the process. Another critical approach is reparenting. Reparenting involves becoming the nurturing, loving, and validating figure you never had growing up. It's about giving yourself the love and security you lacked in childhood, so that you no longer seek it from partners who can't provide it. When you reparent yourself, you take the power back. Instead of searching for love to fill the void, you become the source of love and validation. You stop looking for someone to heal you because you're already healing yourself. With self-awareness and reparenting, you can start choosing partners based on emotional health, not unconscious wounds. You'll be able to choose love that is grounded in mutual respect, trust, and care, not based on the need to repeat old patterns. Attraction isn't just about chemistry. It's a mirror reflecting our deepest wounds, our unhealed parts, and the desires we may not even be fully aware of. Freud's theory reveals something profound. Understanding our past is the key to transforming our future. The goal isn't simply to avoid toxic relationships. It's to evolve beyond them, to move past the unconscious patterns that dictate our choices and embrace healthier, more conscious love. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So as we wrap up, I leave you with this question. Have you noticed any patterns in your relationships? What do you think your unconscious is trying to tell you?